Hello, everyone. I'm Rusty Peace. This is Railsplitters on the mic, and today we're talking with Lincoln Memorial University women's basketball coach Devan Carter. Coach, welcome.
Thank you.
It has been a very interesting ride for you on the collegiate level that I have followed, as we were talking about before we went on the mic here, since day one here in the South Atlantic Conference. Began your career as an assistant over at Tusculum, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Moved on as an interim head women's coach when there was a departure and an availability, and worked your way into the full-time head coach, and now, lo and behold, things for me anyway have come full circle. You've come to LMU to take over the program, and kind of in the fold, if you will, here at LMU as the new women's head basketball coach.
Yes, sir. Yes, it's been a wild ride. It was, like you said, a position came open, and it was kind of out of necessity that I moved over to the women's side. I was coaching I was associate head coach for the men, and then right after practice for the men, we turned around and run practice for the women, and did that for a year. About 4.5, 5 hours of practice every day. You learn a lot, and it was a lot that I had to learn about myself as a coach. Tusculum allowed me to grow in that environment and make mistakes and do different things, and then it all came full circle with this year with us winning the championship, and then we made the move over here, which is one that I'm extremely excited about.
Before we talk about why you chose to get into coaching on the college basketball level, let's go back and, if you will, give some of those out there who maybe haven't had the opportunity to get to know you a little bit about your background.
Come from a family of coaches. My dad was a Hall of Fame basketball coach. Arguably had one of the greatest runs in Virginia history, at GW Danville. And so coaching is kind of in the blood. My brother's a college coach as well. Played basketball in high school, then did a year at Harrogate Military Academy, which I believe is the best prep school in the country, regardless of what those other guys say, but played there for a guy named Kevin Keats. And Coach Keats kind of got me interested in coaching. And so went overseas after college and played for a year and a half, and then came back and got a 9-to-5 finance job. Couldn't stand, being still all day, so took about a $70,000 pay cut to get into coaching, and went back to Hargrave to coach. I worked for A.W. Hamilton there, and one day I was sitting in the office, and Mike Jones gave me a call at Tusculum, and so brought me in as his associate head coach, and was with him for 3 years, and that third year kind of did both. But a little bit about me: just a guy that loves basketball. Couldn't see myself doing any other occupation. I have a put my head down and work mentality. I just like to put my head down and sometimes just shut my door and go to work. And that's what, has kind of led me to this point. Even when I was a basketball player, it's the same way. I just put my head down and work. I didn't believe in excuses, believed in hard work, and believe in paying the price it takes to be successful.
You mentioned Mike Jones a minute ago. I've always thought he was one of the classiest guys in the SAC when he was here. He's since gotten out of the coaching ranks on the collegiate level, but still somewhat involved in maybe youth athletics, youth basketball, if you will. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the statements you made about being at the military academy. When you talk about players, mm-hmm. there's a lot of coaches out there would say a player's a player regardless. You coach females. Is there any of that military type mentality from the academy that you brought with you in your philosophy of coaching? For sure.
I tell people that being in Hargrave as a player and being there as a coach is probably the two most valuable experiences of my life in coaching and athletics. There's a saying in Hargrave where we thrive on structure, routine, and discipline, and that's very much how we run our program. Not like a military school or military aspect, but we do have a ton of structure. I believe in getting our players in a routine, and we try to be disciplined in all facets of our program. And I tell our kids that discipline is just doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it the way it's supposed to be done. And so we try to keep it very simple. within the program, we try to keep everything simple, and we try to get our kids to get in that routine so that, they can perform to the best of their ability. There's a lot of aspects of Hargrave, in our program. And when you look at, Kevin Keats at NC State, when you look at the turnaround A.W. Hamilton had at Eastern Kentucky, we're all very similar. We all we call them Hargrave boys. That's who we are, and we run our program, kind of as such. With that being said, it's a lot of fun to be had. I think that's the trait that all of us possess is we try to have fun with it. And so I want our kids to be structured and disciplined, but we're going to have a lot of fun as well.
Well, I think as far as having fun, I mean, I having not been one of your players, obviously I can't speak to that, but as far as hard work and discipline, I don't think anybody could argue your track record. When you look at the success that your teams have had as an interim or as a full head coach at Tusculum, I mean, the 2019-20 SAC tournament championship goes to you guys. A lot of people looked at that as maybe somewhat of a mild upset. The way you guys played, and I did happen to see that game over there in Greenville, I don't look at it as an upset. The best team won that game.
Yeah, and I think that when you have a league that's as competitive as the SAC, each night is something different. And you look at our games, even coming down the stretch, you look at some of the teams we played. We played what I consider the traditional powers in the league. You go play Wingate, you play Carson Newman, and you play Anderson. But, when you look at the regular season, we had success against Carson Newman, we had success against Wingate, and our games against Anderson were very close at our place and very close at their place. So we knew going into the tournament we were going to have the opportunity. We were just going to have to go through the quote-unquote big dogs to do it. And, I think that, you look at hosting in the first round, and then you play a rival in the second game in the semifinals, and then you get Anderson in the championship. When you get to that point, anything goes. And so I think for us, it was one of those things where you want your kids to be confident. And I think that, if I believe it, the practice before we played Wingate, our point guard spoke up and said, "Coach, we're going to win the whole thing. So you might as well pack your bags for a few days because we're going to be here the whole time."
Wow. So with that being said, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here at all. I'm not trying to call anybody out on the carpet. With that success, with that tournament championship behind you, why the decision to move in this particular point in your career?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision. I worked at a place where it was like a big family. AD was phenomenal. The school support was phenomenal. But for me, it was just about the challenge. And, there's very few jobs that I would have moved for. But I think that when you look at the success that Lincoln Memorial's had in the past, I think that, you look at the facilities, you look at the academic support, and you look at that name on a degree, it was something that, I just couldn't turn down. I think from a competitive standpoint, when you look at the arenas in the league and then you look what LMU has, it's different. When you look at the locker rooms in the league and the film rooms in the league, it's different. And I tell people I think it's one of the top 5 jobs in the country. And so I think when you get to a Lincoln Memorial, then your standard has to be, we're going to try to compete for championships every single year. And that's a challenge. And that's a challenge that I want to take on. I had a great group of girls at Tusculum that I came in with and started with. Those kids graduated and went on to get master's degrees last year. And this was the challenge that I felt was necessary and one that I wanted to take on.
So a fresh start for you here at Lincoln Memorial. You hope to pick up where you left off with a program that turns out as the conference tournament champions. And all of a sudden now you're sidelined with this COVID-19 that is creating difficulty for every coach in the country. And that's got to make things difficult for you in order to build the type program you want from almost the ground up.
Yeah, it's been challenging. Recruiting, believe it or not, has been pretty good, but it's still not the same because you want to be able to get kids on campus. You want to be able to get kids to the facility and show them where they'll be living. And so it's been a unique set of circumstances because you're having to do everything over the phone. But, we've been fortunate, with the things that we offer here. A lot of people want to be here. And so we're navigating this time. We're doing Zoom calls and everything else, trying to get connected with the girls and give them a better feel of myself and my staff. So it's definitely been unique times, but just because it's unique doesn't mean you can't thrive in that space. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to recruit the most competitive roster possible, and that is my goal and my vision. For the program is that year in, year out, we recruit at a high level. I think when you do that, complacency doesn't exist in your program because like there's going to be somebody coming behind me to really push me, and that's what I believe is the mark of a really good basketball team and program. And so, we're navigating this time the best we can. It's been something that I never thought I'd see before, but we've been able to do some really good things during this time.
Being the day and age of the internet and all the technologies that we have at our fingertips now, obviously you can recruit internationally without having to leave the house. That being said, from first glance of the program, what have you identified right away that this team needs in order to be a conference championship competitor in the 2020-21 schedule?
Well, I think everything goes back to the discipline. I tell people all the time that, that you look at a team that's extremely talented and not disciplined, and they always fall short. So I think it starts with the discipline piece, and then I think that, there's got to be some upgrades as far as just the overall roster and the talent on the roster. But I think that the biggest thing that, we're going to have to battle is that, we've got a recruiting class coming in that's pretty athletic and competitive, and, how we navigate and mesh is going to be big for us. And so my goal is to not come in and, not make the conference tournament or anything else like that. That's not the goal. The goal is to come in and compete right away. And that's what I want to do. And so I think if we're able to embrace the little things, the details, if we show up with energy, effort, and enthusiasm every day, I'm not going to say we're going to win a championship, but the goal is to compete for those. And I think that we can do that with this roster.
For practical purposes, the summer's just getting started. You as a coach, I'm sure, hope that players are at home watching what they do, eat, working out when they can, as individual as it may be right now. How will Devan Carter use the next several months in preparation for the season? Well,
we've already kind of hit the ground running with that. Our kids have their strength program. They have everything they need, their gym workouts. They have everything they need to be successful. The thing that we talk to our kids about the most during this time frame is when you come back to campus, we're going to know immediately who's gotten better and who hasn't, who's put in the work and who hasn't. The thing that I want our kids to understand is that, there are no shortcuts to success, and you get what you put in. That's the great thing about basketball is you can't cheat it. And so we've been trying to hammer them over and talk to them over and over and over again about what it takes to be successful. And the great thing about being at a place like, LMU, and even when I was at Tusculum, is that you've got support, from people who allow you to do your job. And I never want to come into the office and make excuses for my players. We talk about the playing time piece all the time. I never have discussions with parents about playing time because it takes what it takes. And we're not going to beat around the bush and have a sense of entitlement or anything else within the program. The best players are going to play. And I'm trying to hammer that to our kids right now. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It doesn't matter, what you've been entitled to in the past. The best players are going to play. So if a freshman comes in and beats out a senior, then the freshman is going to play over the senior. That's, cut and dry. If we have situations where somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, fulfilling their obligations, they're not going to be rewarded for that. So, during this time, I really want our players to get better, to put the work in, because once we get back on campus and get back in the full swing of things, we want to hit the ground running.
Coach, our time's limited, but I want to ask you as we close one final question. I know you've touched on it a couple of times briefly. LMU fans are very passionate about Lady Railsplitter basketball.
Yeah.
If you will, look into that crystal ball one more time and tell us what they can expect from your brand of basketball.
Well, they can expect a very fast-paced, up-tempo, aggressive style of basketball. It's going to be entertaining to watch. I can also tell you that kids that wear the jersey are going to compete at a high level. And that, to me, is the most important piece. We're going to win with class. We're going to do it the right way. But when you come and watch us play, I want people to think that is the hardest playing team in the country. Are we going to play fast? For sure. Are we going to press the entire game? Absolutely. But when you leave the game, man, they competed. I want that to be our identity. I want us to be in better shape than our opponent, and I want us to compete better than our opponent. And that just goes, into our daily process, like how we compete. And so when we get in practice, when we get in conditioning, everything's a competition. Is why they keep score. And anytime the scoreboard's up and we're keeping points, we're going to try to win that. And so fans can expect a exciting brand of basketball where kids are going to compete on a daily basis, every night, every time the ball is flipped in the air, they're going to compete.